Okay, so we're recording. Okay, everybody. So welcome to this week's episode of the Weekly Wealth Podcast, and we have a treat today. Peyton Hoppus is another advisor here at Parallel Financial, and Peyton is a millennial, and Peyton specializes in working with millennials. So we're going to actually refrain from any millennial bashing jokes today. But Peyton, tell us a little bit about your background. Tell us what you've done in the financial planning world, and didn't you do something cool in college, I think?
Yeah, well, David, thanks for having me, man. It's really exciting. I think this podcast has been really informed. It's been great for people who've been able to watch it and listen to it, excuse me. But yeah, overall, man, I've been in this industry a little over 3 years and really been enjoying myself and helping clients. I mean, it seems that just naturally being a millennial, people do gravitate to you. And so a little bit of that has been somewhat of what I've tried to absolutely capitalize on. But some of the other clients I help are retirees. And so it's really been a blessing to see that. But yeah, my background started really in finance. And when I was at Clemson University, actually it's an undergrad in economics. And so I really kind of got the knack for investing in finance, things like that. And so I just kind of started poking around with the stock market, and that led to a big intriguing moment where I decided that I would pursue this a little shortly after I graduated college. But yeah, in college, like you alluded to, I was a male cheerleader. So I met my wife there, and we were able to stunt together and tumble and do all the cool cheerleading stuff, and got to have a lot of great memories. I cheered some Orange Bowls and went to the national championship. The first one Clemson lost, but my wife actually went to the one that we lost and the one we won. So she holds that over my head. She got to experience the one that we won in 2018. But yeah, so I've had quite a college career, but going out of that, I really wanted to help people with finance and had a passion to see people make smart decisions and help them invest and understand and be educated. And that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. No, that's cool. So is big time cheering, is it as dangerous as it looks? I mean, does anybody ever get dropped on their head? Because some of that is freakishly scary.
Yeah. I mean, part of that's true. Yeah. There's absolutely people who have, horror stories you hear, but yeah, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's probably the most dangerous, but there's definitely a factor to it when you're learning to throw your body around and to throw another human being in the air and catch them and make sure they're safe. There's a factor there. It's a big trust factor. But there's a little bit of a thrill seeker involved with each cheerleader. So yeah, you could say that for sure.
Well, if a small woman can trust you to pick her up and throw her, hopefully your clients can trust you to do the right thing with their financial decisions. How's
There
that
you
for
go.
you?
That's it.
So,
That's perfect. That's perfect.
millennials are a little bit younger than me, and there may be some debt, there may be some issues, but everybody wants to make the right financial decisions. So, when should
Yeah.
millennials start investing? I mean, do you need $100,000? Talk to me a little bit about investing for people in the millennial generation.
Sure. So I think it's important that we define what a millennial is. Recently with all this virus going on, the big news media has been saying millennials are out on the beaches. That's actually not us. Millennials are roughly 24 or going on 24 all the way up to age about 38. So that's 1997 actually 1996 would be the cutoff. So most millennials have been out of college a year or they're in graduate school or something like that. But I just think that's important to make sure we start with, because the people eating Tide Pods, I'm not claiming that. So I want you to be very clear on who we are, who we aren't. But no, millennials as a whole is a giant group, right? Baby boomers were massive, Gen Xers were big, and then we've got this massive group of millennials. And a lot of them, even in their 30s, have been working and have jobs with 401k, so they're kind of naturally investing. So I think more specifically, if you have a job that you're working at that has benefits 403b or 401k, absolutely start as soon as you can, get that match and get rolling. But when it comes to people that are self-employed or maybe starting out in different ways, the company doesn't have benefits. Yeah, so starting early is never a problem, and starting late is never a problem. The fact is you're starting. And if you're at the top of the millennial age range, 35, 36, 37, and you're just starting, you probably have a good 30 years to work anyway. You're probably not going to retire till 60, 65, 70. And somewhere in that range, that still gives you a good 30 years to invest. And there's no amount of money that starts. I mean, you can say 100 grand, but if you've got 100 grand, investing has probably been a part of your life for a long time. And if you don't have any money, it's the time to start. It's a perfect time actually in the markets currently. I've had
Well, why would anybody
multiple
want to
friends.
invest when the markets are going down and up and down? It doesn't make sense, does it?
Yeah, no. So everybody thinks that, well, the markets went down, we don't want to touch it, and they think when it's at a high, we don't want to touch it. So when do we touch it? When do we put our money or kind of where our mouth is? And for millennials, that are my age, in their upper 20s, you're gonna have 30, 40 years of investment for retirement, and so now is a huge discount. Since January 2nd, 2020, we've been down almost 30% in the markets. It's a huge time to get in on that. If it even comes back to 15%, you just gained 15% you couldn't gain beforehand. If it kind of bounces back a few months from now, once the virus has kind of died down, man, that's beautiful. That's perfect. But at least you got involved early, and that'll add up exponentially over time. So it's absolutely crucial. $2 grand, $100, $100 grand. Start with something just to get it going.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think, and I think that word start, I think that's the big word is just do something, what you can afford and get started. Nobody has as much
Absolutely.
money as they want right now, but,
Right.
moving forward, people get raises, promotions, things like that.
Absolutely.
There'll be more money
Absolutely.
to save and invest. So, student loans are such a huge topic, and
Mhm.
I'm a little bit older than you, and I want to say my tuition was $4,000 or $5,000 a year. So even with a little bit of debt, paying for part of it, I didn't have much debt
Yeah.
graduating, and you hear about these $1,200 a month student loan payments that kids are graduating with,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's probably pretty stifling for a lot of millennials. So what can you do? Can you refinance? Can you defer? Just give us the student
No,
loan kind of 101 for people in your
sure.
generation.
Absolutely. So whether you have loans in general, there's always refinancing as an option, but student loans especially, it's really low interest rates. And I was checking, rates the other day, and luckily I've been able to pay for mine. And I was very aggressive with my student loans. And I didn't want them. I wanted to kill them. And, with tuition being about 8 to 11 grand a year, well, actually really kind of per semester, depending if you lived on campus or not. Either way, you're looking at a very costly education. And so how do you pay for that? And when you do take loans out, how do you handle those? So, a big part of that is you can refinance. We have SoFi commercials that come on all the time for refinancing student loans or letting them help you. And Citizen Bank, they do one. And there's several other institutions that'll help you refinance. That's absolutely crucial if we can get a lower rate. I mean, right now rates I think are 4.5%, and I think mine was at 6. But I paid it off before the rates got to a point where I could get it really any lower than that. So that's always an option. Reach out to those companies, or we help clients with that all the time. That's an option that we can bring value to the client as well. But besides that, the loan portion of it, I think a lot of people need to have the understanding and mindset that if you take the loan out, besides voting for Bernie, that you got to pay it back. And there's a big part of that if you're aggressive, if you're smart, you have a plan, and you can execute and attack it, you'll do just fine when it comes to loans. And yeah, they kind of do drag you down. And there's a part of that where you took the responsibility of taking them out. Now you have to deal with them. And how do you do that in a smart financial setting? Look at refinancing, look at what your minimum payment is. And then the deferment side of that you mentioned, my wife actually went back to school to get a nursing degree, and we deferred her student loans, at least for the payment side. The interest still built, which wasn't much, and the refinancing was an option because she got a really low rate. So we deferred until she got out. When she got out, we've started paying it back, and she's the only thing we've got left as far as student loans go, and we should be able to knock those out soon. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's definitely something that seems to play our generation, and it's something that we just don't seem to know how to handle because we didn't see it getting this far. So the education part, I think, is important. Understanding how they work, how much you owe, can you defer them, can we get lower payments? And if you're in a rural area that's low income, that's you're working that job to help that community, you can get lower payments or get payment forgiveness. If you're a nurse and you work in a lower end area, or a teacher, it's a tier 1, then yeah, you can get loan forgiveness and payment. So there's all kind of options. You're not just stuck. It's just being smart with what you have.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's crazy. I drive through Clemson University a good little bit in on the way to my other office, and some of the student housing is nicer than my house. So you wonder how much student loan money is going towards housing that is just way, because college is supposed to be a time where you live in a bug infested place and you build
Yeah.
character, and now you get a lazy river and granite countertops and everything else. So
Exactly.
it is
Exactly.
a little bit crazy, but nonetheless, that college degree will just earn you so much more money
Absolutely.
over your lifetime that it certainly is worth it. So, another thing that can help anybody to build wealth over the long term is home ownership. So when you're
Yeah.
balancing paying off student loans, starting to save a little bit of money, buying a home, saving up a down payment, maybe starting a family, those little kids are not cheap. How do you advise, or what is your thought process behind buying a home for someone who's in the millennial generation?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've got some friends that have student loans and friends that don't. And then I have friends who have a house and who don't. And then they have friends that have both, right? And so when it comes to debt, really the conversation is based around outside of buying the home. What debt are you going to take on? How do you take it on? So I think a big part outside of my personal belief, just an advisory standpoint, what are you going to do with debt? You have to understand that just because you take it out, you have something nice, when you get tired of it, whether it's a car or something you finance, you have to pay for that. So it's really important to understand, first off, where your debt is with your student loans, or if you don't have any, then how much can you afford with the house. But once you start that process, it's really, really big that you either attack it or you make sure that it's not going to sink you. And I think that's a lot of where millennials feel like they haven't got an understanding of how do you buy a house? How does this payment work? Kind of what are some thresholds to reach before you start either buying a house, or really good numbers, basically, is what it boils down to. And so a big part of that is, yeah, if you want to build wealth, real estate is the way to go. However, if you buy yourself a $200,000 house and you loan yourself $200,000, the bank loans you that, and you start that process, you're not really building anything for the first 5 to 7 years. You're paying a lot of interest. So it's really wise for you to really set a plan in place, set a action plan to be able to save up. In my professional opinion, from my point of view, from my personal opinion, this matches up as well, 10 to 20%. As close to 20 you can get, because as soon as you get to 20%, if you can put 20% down, you don't pay PMI or property mortgage insurance, and you can knock that off, and that's 80 to $100 a month that you don't have to pay. But if you have that 10% mark, at least do 10%. You can get first time home buyer and get it for 3%. Really, that does not sounds great and wonderful, but you just put 3% down on the biggest purchase you're ever going to put it down on, and you're going to have a big fat mortgage at the end of the month, where you could really knock that down several $100s by saving just a little longer. And again, in the world of instant gratification, I think that's what we deal with biggest in millennials and social media, seeing all this stuff that our friends are doing. But that's okay. Let them make that decision. I don't know their finances, but I know what I can do. I know how I can be smart with mine. And coupled with, I think, still the conversation with student loans is important, because you have student loans and you want to buy a house. How do you do both? You need to make sure you're not overcommitting to something, because student loans, you can't sell anything off. You got to pay that back. Your house, you can get out from under if you can, but we really got to be careful there. And so what I generally work with my friends on, or millennials in general, is try and get you 10%. We're shooting for 10%. Let's save 10%. And then we're not going to buy a house that really the payment's going to be more than a quarter of what we take home. Of what you take home, not gross, but what you take home. You make $4,000 a month, $1,000 should be $1,000 or less for your mortgage payment. If that means putting down 12% to get the $1,000 mortgage payment, then that's what you got to do, because we really want to make these numbers work well for you. The bank will give you a whole lot more than that, but it's really important to not just take what everybody will give you. It's what you can afford, how you can handle it, and having a discussion around what that looks like for you personally, because not everybody's the same, and you know that.
So what's interesting is I bet a lot of your friends and your family would think, hey, Peyton can handle my investments. And maybe Peyton can't control the stock market, but he knows how to invest money. We just spent the last 5 or 10 minutes and we didn't talk about the stock market at all. We talked about some other financial decisions that could be as impactful as your
Absolutely.
investments, but it's part of an overall financial plan. So one of the things that it's important for our clients to remember is, yeah, the markets are important. Yes, we need to know where to invest our money. But yes, we also oftentimes needs the advice of a professional to help us decide how much home can we afford. If you
Yeah.
can afford a $150,000 home, comfortably, and you can barely afford a $300,000 home, and then you buy the $300,000 home, that's a 30-year mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where a good financial advisor could say, look, hey, you can kind of afford this, but let's back it down a little bit so we're not digging a
Absolutely.
hole. So that's exciting, and to hear your expertise in that is very exciting. So if anybody, whether they're millennials or not millennials, wanted to have a consultation or get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you? And what is your process for working with clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So we at Parallel, we've got a great team here, and so a lot of our process. I'll talk about that first because the contact info is super simple. But the process is really sitting down with the client, 100% free, just to talk, because we got to figure out if we're going to work together first. Talk about it, whether that's doing the investing, doing the financial planning, insurance, working with business owners, because that's also who I work with. Just really understanding how that works together, the relationship that we may be able to build there, or what you guys are really looking for in general, because that's really where it starts. Start from there, then we start talking about what the plan is. How can we execute what you're looking for? And going down that path with the client, kind of setting out some goals a little bit further out and some meetings further out to sit down and meet and talk about certain things and go over some stuff that we can help them with. And obviously engage with them in financial planning or investing and insurance, and sitting down and continuing that conversation over the period of the relationship, however that may be 30 years, or if it's just 3 months, they just need a little bit of help with insurance and whatnot. That's what we do. But we sit down and make sure we're talking with you about what you need, not what we think you need. And that's the biggest part. It's probably the biggest thing we start with, was just talking, seeing what you need, and see what we can offer, and going from there. And then setting out a plan and an action plan to go get it done. So, but also with that, obviously the contact information. Yeah. So you can reach me at in my email. It's going to be Peyton. It's Peyton. It's E is for a male. A is what usually everybody tries to put for a male. But just like Peyton Manning, Peyton, Peyton at parallelfinancial.com. That's my email address. And would love to sit down and help anybody that may need it.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I enjoyed chatting with this. This was a good, informative conversation that focused on some things that we can control, and especially nowadays, we cannot control the stock markets, but
Yeah.
we certainly can control if we're looking to pay off some debt earlier or buy a house that we can afford. So, would love to have you on frequently, and we can discuss more topics that apply to the millennials.
Heck yeah. Well, I love it. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it, man. It's been fun. This was great to talk about. I'm glad I could get it out there and get some good information out to people who may be listening.
Good deal. Awesome. All right. We'll chat next time.
All right, David. See ya.
Thanks.